Hello again, folks. Welcome back to another episode. Hebrews 11 of the Bible. Wait, what? There's not many wait, what moments in this chapter, actually. It's one of the more well-known and probably reasonably, well, maybe there is a few, because maybe there's a few misunderstandings in this chapter about what faith is and how it works. But it's called the faith chapter, the honor roll of faith, isn't it?
Yeah, because it lists a bucket load of people who have, throughout the Old Testament, that have had to stick to their faith, hold on, persevere, and
it lists people who we would consider great men and women of faith, people who, like Daniel, who stopped the mouths of lions and walked through the fire, and Enoch, who was taken up into heaven. It lists people, Abraham did this, and, you know, great Noah built a boat, and it lists all these great men and women of faith. And we easily we're attracted to those kind of people.
Yes.
We think that is what faith is, people who see mountains moved and see miracles. And that's true. Faith does do those things. But what Hebrews 11 tells us is that it's not just people who see the result that are faithful. People can never see the result and still be faithful. And we talked about this in the last episode, and really big on this whole thing of patient hopefulness at the moment. I think that we have, as a Christian church, as Pentecostal churches, perhaps we've seen the downside of just this whole faith being seeing the miracle. And when we don't, we start to say, where was our faith? Yeah. We're not patient. We haven't been patient enough with suffering. And in reality, life is full of suffering. So we've kind of, I think there's been a turn against that whole faith thing, in that positive faith thing, but potentially in the result of which often happens in human behavior, maybe we've gone the other way a little bit, and now we've gone to a little bit of defeatist or fatalistic view because we wanted to stay away from this whole faith is marked by seeing a miracle. And I think we need to find a middle ground, and I think it's patient hopefulness, which is really what Hebrews 11 is saying, what Hebrews 10 was saying as well. It's you can stay full of hope even if you don't see the breakthrough. You can still be hopeful and faithful regardless of whether you see it. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Always we will eventually. Even at the other side of the grave, we will see God break through. We may or may not see it in this life, but that does not determine whether we are faithful and whether we have faith. And Hebrews 11 makes that very clear.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I was thinking is like what we are hopeful for might not actually be what God wants for us too.
Give me an example. I'm hopeful for a new car, or are you trying to be more?
Sort of, well, possibly, or I'm hopeful that, oh no, but in saying that, it's like, well, hopeful that my kids will follow the Lord, or my generations will follow the Lord. So might happen, might not.
It may or may not. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't pray for it. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't. This is where it gets confusing. Yeah. We should claim those things because they are promises. Jesus says that you can claim those things. However, hopefulness is anchored in a person, not in a result. So we can claim and should pray for healing. We should pray for breakthrough. We should pray for provision. We should pray to be able to buy a home, those sorts of things. We should be able to pray for those things. Jesus is interested in those things. How much more, he says in Matthew 6, will he give you those things if he's prepared to, clothe the birds and, lilies of the field and all that sort of stuff? How much more will he do that? So it's not that we shouldn't have hopefulness for those things, but our hopefulness in God is anchored beyond the circumstance. It's anchored in the person of Jesus, who one day will wipe away every tear, who one day will right every wrong, who one day will masterfully redeem all things and bring all creation under himself. What that looks like, I have no idea, but that's what I hang my hope on. I'll get to the other side of the grave and I'll go, wow, this was so much better than what I could have imagined. And I hang my hope on that. So I'm just sort of
thinking of like those people, and I've been down that road at times where it's like, well, hopeful for, why have we struggled for so long with, like people have struggled with their finances and
or illness.
Illness, and everything seems like everything keeps breaking. And it's like, well, when God sort of says you can, I'm probably misquoting sort of thing, well, it's okay, you can have ask for things in heaven but also here on earth. And it's like, well, how can people maintain their
That's a
hope
really good
for
question.
okay, yes, we've got eternal hope, but it's also
there is a now temporary component to it, and that's the question, and it's not an easy answer. Other than I think there needs to be a way in which we can let's pick one. Let's pick healing. Person who has a chronic health condition. I think it's possible to say, I believe God can heal me. I believe and claim God's healing promises, and I'm believing in faith for that to happen, and I'm hopeful it will happen, and also hold in tension with that kind of prayer, a tension that says, but even if it doesn't happen, I still trust God's goodness. It almost seems like they're two parallel, never the twain shall meet kind of concepts. And yet I think in the Christian message is an ability to hold them in tension. It's the ability that Jesus says in the parable of the persistent widow. He says, do you think that your heavenly Father will grant you what you ask and quickly? However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? In one sentence, Jesus has presented us with that tension. You can claim it and you can believe for it, and God will give it to you quickly. That's the first part. And secondly, but if he doesn't, he just said he would, but if he doesn't, even before Jesus comes back, when Jesus comes back, will he still find you believing in faith that you have it, that God's good, that God's faithful, that God will come through? It's the faith that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have in the furnace. We believe God can deliver us. We believe he will, but if he doesn't, we still trust him. I think that's the tension of these two, that we, as Christians, we don't do nuance well. We're either or. So we either go, oh, I don't believe it at all, or throw it out, or that faith thing doesn't work because God's not good because he didn't come through for me, rather than finding that way to hold those two in tension. And Hebrews 11 does that because it shows us that even if you get the healing in this life, this is what Hebrews 11 will say, is even if you get the healing in this life, even if you get the miracle in this life, actually even that pales in insignificance compared to the ultimate fulfillment of the kingdom that will come in the next life. That's the ultimate one we should be aspiring to. Anytime we get something, a miracle in this life, it's only a down payment on the ultimate thing. Yeah. It's a small fry compared to the ultimate thing. Even complete healing, as beautiful as that is small fry compared to the ultimate healing of of eternity.
Yeah.
Does that sort of resound in your spirit?
It does. It does. It definitely it helps trying to, how do you live in that tension?
In the tension. Living in the now and the not yet.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the tension between the now and the not yet. Definitely. Well, Hebrews 1 says faith, this is the NLT, says faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. So I love this, and there's all different versions of this whole thing, but I love the word hope that's in there. Faith is something we're hoping for. This means that faith is linked to hopefulness, and it's something that I haven't got yet. Yeah. So faith is actually not, once you get the thing, you don't need faith anymore. Really, in a sense. Yeah. Once you receive it, there's no need for faith. So faith is pointing towards something I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that God will give me a need, particular need in my life, and I'm hopeful about that. And I have faith for that. And it's also the proof that the fact that I have hope and faith in my life is the trust that even though I haven't seen it, it's the evidence of things I can't see. To me, on the inside, if I'm believing God for that breakthrough or that miracle, it's as good as done. Yeah, I'm going to be able to live my life, not necessarily on the outside, because I may have a chronic illness that may prevent me from living the way I want, but on the inside, I can live with a degree of freedom that nothing can take away from me now. And then it goes into this kind of the honor roll of faith, doesn't it?
Yeah, lists everybody, or nearly everybody, even those people without names. It sort of goes on to this other people, but definitely goes through the Old Testament, and it's and as you reiterate, it's sort of saying it was like they were hoping for more. So there was foreigners and nomads on the land. So basically they were all sort of saying, well, no, I've got my hope for a future heaven.
Yes.
Or future life.
A different kingdom.
Yep.
This is temporary compared to that.
Looking for a better place, a heavenly homeland. That is why God is not ashamed to call them their God, for he has prepared a heavenly city for them. So it's definitely giving you that sort of taste of, something more.
Yep. And every time we do that Hebrews 10 thing, go into the temple, go into the heavenly temple, we are accessing that heavenly Jerusalem. It's a down payment on what it will finally be like to truly experience it. Or fully experience it. I shouldn't say true. It's true now, but more fully experience it.
Yeah. Which, it's like, how much faith do we have to trust God? Because it says in verse 35, I'm just probably putting a slight downer, is like, but others trusted God and were tortured, preferring to die rather than turn from God and be free. They placed their hope in the resurrection to a better life. Some were mocked, backs were cut open, whips. Others have died or in chains in dungeons. Some died by stoning, sawed in half. It was like, in our Western comfortable life, like,
that doesn't fit our model of faith, does it?
No,
and that's where I'm going with this. I love the fact. I always joke about the fact that even the translators that put the original verses in, they didn't even bother to break up those who were seeing miracles in one verse and those who didn't see the miracle in another. You mentioned verse 35, but verse 35 still starts with someone receiving their loved ones back from death.
Yep.
So talking about, the widow of Nain seeing Jesus, resurrect her son. And then it says, but others were tortured. So they didn't even worry about breaking the verse, which is, I think, is intentional. It's like they had a chuckle as if to say, you know what, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether you see your son come back to life or not, whether you see the breakthrough or you get tortured, it actually is still the same thing. You still endured in faith and your reward is the same. That's the beauty of this passage. It doesn't downplay. Some Christians only want to focus on the first half.
Yeah.
That's faith. And then as a reaction to that, other Christians only want to focus on the second half and go, no, the real faith is those who endure, not those who see this name it and claim it stuff. Sorry?
Those who are sucking lemons.
Yeah, exactly. The ones who are sucking lemons. That's real faith. I think Hebrews 11 makes it really clear that both are faith.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by we believe God can, and if he chooses not to, I still believe he can, and I still believe he's good. I think that's the best marriage of these two. Verse 39 says, all of these people, the good and the bad, they all received a good reputation because of their faith. Yet none of them received what God had promised. Even those that got the children back to life, they still didn't receive the ultimate promise yet. For God had something better in mind for them so that they would not reach perfection without us. We all together are looking forward to this final fulfillment when heaven and earth are reunited, when Jesus redeems all of creation unto himself. That's the goal. That's the thing. And as I said, when we get there, we'll go, wow, that exceeds our wildest imaginations as what that is. That's worth living for and dying for.
Yeah. Just that revelation that in one sense in time, like people have lived thousands of years ago and are still waiting for the final reward because we haven't got there yet.
We're going to get it together in some way, in some crazy way. At the resurrection, we're all going to get it together.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
And it's then also when we die, we won't have received everything until the future generations.
That's right. Yep.
And God finally ultimately brings us all together.
Yep.
So when we die, we'll be joining these guys who is coming
who are still waiting. Up. And they're actually the guys that we're going to see introduced in the first verse of chapter 12, which we're going to do next. It'll be next week, actually. Yeah. Next Monday, we're going to do it right in a couple of minutes, record it. But that's what we'll see is we'll become part of what the Hebrews 12 calls the great cloud of witnesses, cheering us on as we are being cheered on by all these people who've gone before, who've done this, whether they've lived or died. Just to close out this, I already quoted it, but I love it again. It says, for God had something better in mind for us. I think those words should resound in my spirit because it applies. If I've just seen a miracle, if I've just seen a breakthrough, if God has just done something good for me, as beautiful as that is, God has something even better in mind for me.
Yes.
That's not the be-all and end-all. And if I haven't seen the breakthrough and the person has died or the situation has died, God has something better in mind for me. Let's not ever forget that our wildest imaginations are still fall short of what God has in mind for us.
Yeah.
Wow, I think God's word is pretty cool.
I think it is.
All right, is that enough for chapter 11?
It is.
All right, chapter 12, we're going to carry the same flow of thought right on through. Okay. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bible. Wait, what? Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And you can also find us on all the socials. Just search The Bible. Wait, what? And to find out more about our church, just search C3 Camden, C3 Picton, or C3 Thirroul on the web or on the socials. Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to talking to you on the next episode of The Bible. Wait, what?